Today I'm going to go over why I typically enjoy programming landmine presses for overhead pressing compared to just strict overhead pressing, and the benefits behind teaching your shoulder blade how to move a little bit more efficiently to take some unwanted stress off of your shoulder. Before we go over problems that I see when coaching landmine presses or how to properly execute a landmine press, I want to talk about the shoulder blade itself and a little bit of anatomy behind it, so you have a better understanding on why I'm programming the way that I'm programming, or my thought process behind executing it the right way, right? So on the left-hand side, we have optimal shoulder blade position. So we're gonna go SB here, we'll go SB here, and then we're gonna go humerus here. So the circle is the head of the humerus, and the SB is the shoulder blade. Scapula, same thing on this side, humerus, shoulder blade, shoulder blade. All right, so on the left-hand side, what you'll notice is that the shoulder blade sits away from the middle of the body. So this is we'll talk about this being the spine, so this is the middle of the body. And when the shoulder blades sit too close together, what we'll notice is a big rib flare, and we'll also see more like retraction. So these shoulder blades sit a little bit closer together, which becomes problematic for the congruency between the shoulder blade and the arm moving overhead, right? So I'll show you on this side, but let's say that this is 3 inches away. So the left-hand side is in a good position, as we see over here, but the right-hand side isn't. So we'll call this like 1.5, right? What we'll notice is the middle of the back on that right-hand side, the muscles get a little bit shorter compared to the left-hand side, where the muscles are a little bit longer. And then we'll see that the shoulder blade moves down because the lat is tight. And what that does is that brings the humerus with it. So if our goal on the left-hand side with the good shoulder blade positions is to move our arm overhead, our shoulder blade needs to be in a good position. That way it doesn't run out of room or space, or the timing mechanism for when the arm tries to get all the way overhead, right? So think about it like this, right? This shoulder blade sits three inches away, as well as this one, which would be a good position. And then as they go overhead, instead of starting, this would be like the starting line. Instead of starting behind the starting line, it's starting at the starting line, which means everything's going to move together a little bit more efficiently. Whereas on this side, because the shoulder blade's already sitting closer to the midline, it's already starting farther behind, which puts strain everywhere else, in regards to that movement, right? So if the shoulder blade is sitting down and towards the midline, but our goal for getting overhead is to get the shoulder blade to reach up and around the body, you can see how this would be problematic for somebody who has shoulder issues, right? And why we do landmine press, which we're going to go over next. So the good news is that regarding the position of your shoulder blades, where you might take a look at yourself in the mirror and you might notice that you have a lower right shoulder blade or a lower left shoulder blade, is that we can train the lat to lengthen during specific exercises such as landmine press, which will help us make our shoulder feel better when we reach overhead. The problem is, if we don't execute it the right way, we're going to teach ourselves how to continually move our arm overhead with faulty movement patterns. So the first thing we're going to do, and I'm going to do this from multiple angles, but the first one is going to be from the side, is going to be how we set up the landmine press in regards to our shoulder, right? So we typically have our elbow have it slightly outside the shoulder, and I'll show you why we do that from the side. But from here, we're going to squeeze it tight. We're going to keep our elbow outside the shoulder, and we're going to punch up and reach as high as we can, right? So we're going to reach as high as we can to get a really, really good lat stretch at the top to engage our upper traps. So from the side, it should look like, again, we don't want the bar starting behind our shoulders. We want to keep it in front of us. Core is engaged, punch and reach, and then come back in. Right, so one of the reasons we like to keep our elbow away from our body and not in front of our body is if you don't have the core control or the range of motion, on the bottom, the shoulder can dip forward, and then at the top, it's almost like you're extending and pressing away, right? So by keeping the bar away from you, you're allowing your shoulder blade to move a little bit more freely, and you're also allowing your core to be engaged so you can resist that extension. Now from the front, you also notice that at the top, when I press, I don't press towards the middle of my body, I press straight up overhead. Some coaches think about leaning towards it, and I think that's always a great idea, but if an athlete struggles to understand what that lean towards it means, and they tend to almost, again, extend, or they can't control their core, or their arm starts to go too far behind their head, I typically just start with them learning how to reach, which I always find very, very beneficial regarding really good engagement of all the muscles of upward rotation anyway. So again, I want that knee right in front, push straight down, back hips engage, arm starts away, punch, and then reach. Another common mistake we'll see is, you can see with me too, as I punch, I tend to rotate. I actually want to stay nice and close, that way I can get some really good protraction and flexion at the top.